The space race was a race to see who could do more with space technology. And who were racing, you might ask? Well, it was the good old US of A and the Soviet Union. When the Soviets launched Sputnik 1, it made the US push harder to achieve something much better than the Soviets. This led up to the US putting 2 men on the moon and bringing them back home. Now you may be wondering, what if the Soviets had put a man on the moon? This might lead to Soviet moon colonies and eventually communist space bears. This all might have happened without the space bears, of course. But what if this all happened? That is the topic of today's video. But first, some context. In the 1950s, the Red Scare was all the rage. The battle between East and West was new and was the beautiful start to a relationship between two nuclear powers. They both got the German technology after defeating the Nazis just a decade ago. The Americans used the missiles to put certain payloads on just in case anything were to happen. Then in 1957, the Soviets launched Sputnik 1, which made the people of America freak out. The Soviets were seen as a poor backwater nation, but they had just put a spacecraft in space. But it pushed America to invest in technology and to get us to the moon. Then the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, had announced to the world that the U.S. would put a man on the moon before the decade was up. And after disaster and scientific achievement, the U.S. put 2 men on the moon in 1969. But sadly, the Apollo project was coming to an end. In a democratic society, public support is needed to keep programs running, and apparently landing people on the frickin' moon is getting old. So to end the race, the US and Soviets conducted a joint space project in low Earth orbit. Now for this to work, 3 things would have to change. 1. There is now unity among the Soviet scientists. In our own timeline, the scientists worked against each other instead of working together. 2. The US would have to be way behind in technology. And 3. The Soviets would need bigger rockets. So now with a little wishing from a fairy godmother, we have a successful Soviet mission. It's the 1970s. The US was too slow in their own moon project. The Soviets had took another win in the space race. Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov is the first man to set foot on another surface. The Soviets immediately bragged their accomplishment to America. The Soviet moon landings become one of the biggest embarrassments in American history. In our timeline, after the moon landings, NASA worked on space travel, which would be cheaper, and spacecraft, which could be reusable. But in this timeline, NASA would not see a budget cut. The government would keep funding NASA until we made a better accomplishment than the Soviets. Most likely, an American Venus or Mars mission would take place. Who knows? What do you think would have happened if the Soviets landed on the moon first? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. What if history? Thank you for watching.